So Nadija, to start off, I'd like to kind of ask you about your journey at John Keells Holdings, how you got into the legal field. Before we get into questions specific to the property sector, just want to track back and hear about your journey.
Well, the journey's been a little bottom up. I think I started off not knowing very much other than my academics, but I've had great mentors, and JKH is really a fabulous place for working and learning. And what's special, and I think it is particularly true for the property sector, is that you learn with the business and you learn how to use your skills as a lawyer to enable the business to do their work and to be the best they can. So we at JKH, I think, learned how to partner business as lawyers.
Right. And just talk me through the early days of the property development business. You were part of the Emperor and Monarch as well, post the acquisition of Asian Hotels and Properties. And that was conceptualized, of course, and built during the period of the war. And, what were some of the challenges you faced during that period and really getting you all pretty much developed the property sector at the time? And there was a big part that you played at the time in terms of having the whole legal framework set up, whether it was the agreements, the sales agreements, going up to deeds and everything else. Just talk us through that whole process that you went through.
I think it would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that there was a property sector before we went into condominiums. We had Keells Realtors, and we had at that time when we were developing a lot of properties, but that we hived off at one point. We inherited business of condominium and apartments when we bought the HPL deal. Sale and purchase agreement forms the basis of the contract between all the parties. So how important it is to have comfort for the purchaser as well as some level of standardization on the part of the developer. Going forward, we also understood to some extent how a mixed development can work, because that was a hotel that was providing services to a set of apartments, but the apartments would eventually be individually owned, and how that relationship can be managed. Things like common entrances, common roadways, common utilities. So it was a huge learning curve, but I think it set a good tone and a set of learning for how we were able to expand into different types of residencies. So I think we bought HPL with just the residencies tower. We built Monarch, and Monarch is a combination of a commercial and residential property, and how that worked out. And then we built Emperor. So within that complex, three different land parcels owned by three different now legal entities, because each of the condominiums are owned by a different legal entity. Working also with the hotel, which also sits there and is very much part of the complex. We understand that our contracting partner is a partner, right? And as we go through the project, both parties have to win. Otherwise, the end result is going to fail. So we're not a very litigious company, and we try, when there are reasonable circumstances, to help our contractual partners, because ultimately the end is to achieve the culmination of that contract.
Going into the whole kind of post-war era, and you were part of that as well. So Emperor and Monarch is, of course, during the war, but post-war, JKH had big ambitions. So just post-war, we conceptualized and launched on 320. And I think that was the first kind of mid-luxury development in the heart of the city. Maybe you'd like to just touch upon that experience, anything specific you'd like to mention on that?
I just remember sitting at a table that I was invited to, and it was a brainstorming session just after the end of the war. about what John Keells should do to now move the country forward, shed the shackles that have held us back, and what we can do on our own and what we needed government partnership for. And, the whole City of Dreams development also came out of part of that, but we needed government partnership and government involvement in how that was structured. But this was a small project. It was quick. It was easy. And they said, let's just do it. Let's just build it. Let's give the city a boost. And I just still remember the conversation about what we needed to do to catalyze economic activity, people coming back into the city, people finding affordable places to live. So the catalysis of it.
And also just transforming the skyline of Colombo. No one really went to Union Place back in the day, right? And I think on 320 really transformed that location.
I remember a vision of it become the Orchard Road, Union Place becoming the Orchard Road of Singapore. Yeah, I remember.
And apartments there started at what, 12.5 million rupees at the very start. And today you can see where these apartments are trading at. So just to move on, of course, the next part of it was City of Dreams. At that point, it was just a waterfront project, which translated to Cinnamon Life and now City of Dreams, Sri Lanka. Talk us through that whole process and the scale of it and how you managed the whole legal side of that entire development.
I mean, as I said, with all the developments, the legal team at John Keells sits through at the conceptualization of it. If it's on land that's not ours, the legal due diligence behind it, to some extent, how you structure it. And I still remember in the Monarch conversation how you structure commercial and residential. And so we're partners of it. The conception of this 7 acres?
It's 10 acres.
Is it 10 acres? Then we built, initially 7 acres. Initially 7 acres, that we expanded it. Of land that was owned by us, had a long period of learning on the construction contract. Because once conceptualized and because we wanted to go out into the open, but we didn't have full details of our design. So crafting a contract that allowed the design to evolve in partnership with the contractor, without it leading to claims was also, I think, quite a masterclass in construction contracts. Similarly, we had along the way, and because of all the shocks that have come in, the contract has morphed. It has so many like force majeure provisions that have come in because of Easter attacks, or COVID or economic crisis, and how that is managed to keep the site ticking, to ensure that everyone, we get to the end goal, and trying to be fair on the contractor. Yeah, so it's working within the contract, but also a lot of negotiations. And I remember at the very beginning, the relationship wasn't so good, or we had maybe language or cultural differences. So there was a lot of claims that were going out into disputes. And one of the ways that we resolved that was just sitting across the table. And we said, before we take it to a dispute board, let's sit and try and understand it. And that ability to sit with two people who were kind of not vested, it's almost a mediation process, helped us resolve it without going into formal disputes. Yeah. So a lot of learning, a lot of partnerships, a lot of on the ground, walking the site sometimes. Cool. Yeah. Interesting.
And also, even for our buyers today, I mean, trust is a big component for all our buyers when they purchase a unit with us. And even before, escrow accounts are currently not mandatory. But, the escrow agreements were in place even from our first few projects that we started developing. Just talk us through that whole process when there's something that's not mandatory by the government. where it is mandatory in most countries, but not in Sri Lanka as yet. But we put those controls in place at the very start.
I mean, I think when you work for John Keells, you are ultimately not working for anyone. You're working for the good of, I think, always the nation in a way. But we are also sometimes very aware of who the consumer is, because sometimes at JKH, we are very much the consumers of our own products as well. So if you're putting in money that is hard won in this country and considerable amount of your asset portfolio, you want some level of comfort. And that's what we did. We looked at best practices. We looked at what we could do. I think we had trust in our ability to deliver, and therefore we put in place the systems that maybe not mandatory, but are required and good practice.
So, Nadija, your journey at JKH, what are you most proud of your time at JKH?
I think when I look back, the ability to have contributed to moving the needle. So specifically in terms of property, having contributed in some small way to the concept of bringing in apartment living or high-rise living into this beautiful city, which is still extremely low-rise.
Only 14% of Colombo's housing are apartments.
Um, but you still have all your infrastructure in Colombo. You have your schools in Colombo. So coming into Colombo is still an imperative. It's very difficult to live only in the suburbs. And making that affordable for people who haven't got inherited houses, and able to manage their quality of life better because they have a lower commute is something that I'm actually quite proud to have done. From a leisure and City of Dreams perspective, I mean, I think what we've done with the City of Dreams is a game changer in terms of how Colombo sits in the Asian context, let alone the South Asian context. We have venues that are now capable of hosting
Large mice.
events, restaurants which are world class, and a hotel that's fabulous. So I remember the vision of it wanting to be the Marina Bay Sands of South Asia or the Monaco of South Asia. And I think we're getting there. And I'm really, really thrilled to have been part of this journey. It was humbling, learning, and I'm so proud to have been contributed in a small way.
Well, and also, I think the art at Cinnamon Life. You had a big part to play in that, Nadija. Just talk us through that, bringing all of that art into the hotel, which has really, I mean, changed the whole character of that building, right? And I think everyone who walks through that building really just enjoys just standing there, admiring the art, walking through the different spaces. And it's so beautifully curated across the hotel. Maybe just talk us through that whole part and how, art was also part of your whole journey at JKH.
I'm there's a lot there to unpack. So I'll start maybe with Cinnamon Life. And for many years, we as John Keells, have been one of the sole corporate supporters of the arts, primarily in the form of color puller, but also we've done Gratian, we've done Budget Sena Foundation. And over the years, several artists have come and said, why, when you refurbish your hotels, do you bring in this Thai artifacts from Chatuchak? Why are you not using your local craftsmen and local arts people? And it was something that really struck home. So it was something that kept coming up at the project meeting saying, we really need to think about using local talent. And then having drafted the contract, I was at a meeting where Cecil Belmont was trying to explain the vision for Cinnamon Life. And I know it's not commonly conceived, and it's conceived as something very alien to the Sri Lankan gaze. But what he was saying is that, we have we have become accustomed to a colonial mindset. We are used to these, what he calls cookie cutter tower blocks, and frames of houses which are more colonial than Sri Lankan. So he says he leaned further back on the Sri Lankan vernacular, what was traditionally, so the curve of the tsupas, the guard stones, the moonstones. And he then took that and abstracted into conceiving the future with these outstretched arms and the balance of the Nataraj. And I'm sure there's enough on it. So it was a very Sri Lankan concept. And adding Sri Lankan art to it only enhanced it. We didn't curate it. We don't have the expertise within the organization. But I think once we had sponsorship from the organization, we looked around. We asked numerous people. We asked the Museum of Modern Contemporary Art. We asked other art curators. But at that time, I'm very grateful that Saskia Fernando came forward, not as a gallerist, but just an expert. And she provided a wonderful introduction to Cecil of all the contemporary, because he wanted young contemporary artists. And she did this long list of old and young contemporary artists. He shortlisted some. The John Keells Group looked at it from governance perspective, were there enough women, that sort of thing. And then the interior design team at David Grace looked at it. And at the intersection with the first commission of art that we did, and Saskia managed that production. I'm so grateful to all the artists who came along that journey with us. It was a long journey. We didn't have a lot of money to spend on it at the time. I'm really excited to announce that we're going to do the second commission now. So some of it will be through an open call, and some of it will be through and it will be managed. There's a committee that has Cecil Balmont and other art committee members and so on who look at this. So very, very excited. We hope that we keep seeing art. And I think maybe the last part of this is that we recognize the contribution that the artists have given us. So as a huge thank you, we've also allowed any artist who's given art to us at JK, at Cinema and Life, to take part in an artist spotlight. It's a 3-month exhibition. We give them a space and they're allowed to sell that art. So I didn't mention the room art. The room art, we went out to commission. So again, the initial concept drawings had all these abstract foreign decoration. So we took the same budget and we asked various people whether they'll be able to curate it. A lot of them didn't want to. Curating art in a commercial space is not everyone's cup of tea. Some of it, the budget was too small, but we're a young curator who works with Chana Daswat, his team took it on. And again, very grateful to Kasun Jarman, who has put some beautiful works into our room. We have original pieces of work in every single room. And I think the hotel now has over 1,000 pieces of original work. There's a catalog that's coming out, which has the architectural narrative. There is an interior design narrative. So Cecil is really well known for winning loads of global prizes for public art. And I think we're very privileged at Cinema and Life and at Noam and within the complex because he's integrated that into the architecture. So some of the lights, as you walk in, that large escalator has the snow globes or snow works, things that's from Alaska. He's got the sun, the moon, then you have the whole Celestine thing. So all of that's going to be now documented and also available on a QR code. So I'm hoping that people will start to appreciate things more that way.
Yes, of course. So Nadija, just from your end, one piece of advice for young professionals in law and corporate leadership going forward.
I thought, be curious. I think I've been immensely lucky at JKH because they've never tried to cage me into my lawyer's box. So I've had the privilege of working in property and knowing quite a lot about property, but as a lawyer. I've had the privilege of working in art, not as a lawyer at all. um, so that ability to learn so much more than your academic training.
Yeah.
It's curiosity. It's being lucky enough to work for a place like JKH that allows it, and to have the governance mechanisms that govern these organizations. Yes, curiosity.
And having worked closely with you over the years, Nadija, I can see your attention for detail and really going micro, looking into it, always questioning us. I've got a few shillings as well, but you know, that has really shaped us as people, and always a question going to the details without just looking at it on the surface. So I think it's been great. And Nadija, wishing you all the very best.
Thank you. I think JKH, and I'm very excited about everything I see in the future. I'm excited about your property program portfolio coming up. I think there's so much that property can still do for Colombo, and I know you will when I see your thing. So good luck to you guys too.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.